so nice to see so many of you. Just repeating for those of you who have just joined, today's session is going to be really, really engaging. It's going to be a little bit different from our usual, our usual wisdom talks. So we invite you all to turn on your cameras, and if you have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, then you can get that ready. If you don't, that's okay. We'll be sending like a link in the chat to an online version of the Bhagavad Gita, which we'll be using for the debate this evening. Today we're joined by Nilamani. And Nilamani went to Imperial College London and she became a GP. But whilst at university, she came across the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, took to its study, and thereafter, in 2001, she formally became a disciple of Shivaram Swami in ISKCON. She later collaborated on a bespoke philosophy, religion, and ethics scheme for the Avanti Schools Trust. And she's also a kirtan artist, a speaker, a dancer, and a bhakti yoga guide. So we're really, really lucky to have her with us today. Hi, Nilamani.
Hare Krishna. Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's well. Should I start sharing my screen?
Yeah, I think let's get started.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say a quick prayer just as I begin. Really excited for the session, by the way. Really looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts on this pertinent and exciting topic. So I'm just going to begin with Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, So our topic today is the Bhagavad Gita promoting violence? That is going to be the debate that we'll be having. And just to give you a very, very brief introduction, religion has been held to task since the beginning of time for being a cause of war. It's caused factions in society and been used as a sledgehammer for one-upmanship between people. And here we've got a text, a religious text that's been spoken on a battlefield. And just before the battle begins, when Arjun's unsure what to do, Krishna urges him to fulfill his duty as a warrior and fight. Clearly, Krishna is encouraging war to take place, and yet Krishna is understood to be God. Why is this? And is the Gita promoting violence? So this is the motion statement. This house believes the Bhagavad Gita promotes violence. So if you guys want to write this down as your motion statement, please do. And I'm going to hand over to Bhagavd to explain the debate format.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nilamani. What an exciting debate. I'm really, looking forward to hearing everyone's opinions. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sending out a poll now. So I think the tech team can send that out. That would be amazing. And we're going to be asking you all what your opinions are. Does the Bhagavad Gita promote violence? After that, once we answer the poll, we're going to be splitting up into breakout rooms. So in this session, a lot of you guys are going to be doing the work. You're going to be thinking, churning, discussing. So we're going to split you into around 6 breakout groups. And some of you will be arguing for, and some of you will be arguing against. So have a look in the Gita. If you have your copy of the Gita, we'll also send a link in the chat, and see what different things you see about the Bhagavad Gita promoting violence or not promoting violence. We also invite you to choose one spokesperson from your group, and after the breakout session, which will last for around 10 minutes, we'll come back and we'll have a discussion, so the spokespeople will be able to share their opinions of the group for 1 minute, and then we're going to come back and do that poll again and see have people's opinions changed, or are they the same? Yeah, how's that sound, everyone? Give some thumbs up. Amazing. Can see you all. It's really nice to see. Um, can we get the poll out? Is that working? Oh, amazing. Here it is. Okay, let's see. People's votes are coming in slowly. Okay, fantastic. Everyone's votes are slowly coming in. Got about 80% of you. Um, I think we'll start the breakout rooms now. We share the results. People can see. A lot of people are saying no. It's interesting. So we can get the breakout rooms ready. And just a reminder, please do turn on your cameras, and try and be as engaged as possible. And we'll see you all in about 10 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Thank you all so much. I hope everyone has chosen their spokespersons in the groups. And I think we'll start with group number 6. And they were arguing for, no, they were arguing against the motion that the Bhagavad Gita does not promote violence. So can we have the spokesperson from group number 6?
I think I was group number 6. I was in 7, then got moved to 6. Yeah, we're 6. And no one was willing to be the spokesperson, so I've collected everyone's thoughts. I'm really sorry. I was trying to, like Krishna, I was trying to convince someone to pick up the mic, not the bow and arrow, but a mic. So here I am speaking on behalf of group 6. So we are saying that no, the Bhagavad Gita does not promote violence. And I'll say the list of things we said. So the first thing is that at the end, Krishna says that Arjuna, it's your choice. So Krishna gives moral arguments for fighting, weighing up the consequence, and that while it is a promotion of violence, it's violence to a peaceful end. So it's not like the violence continues and perpetuates onwards. Then there was a point of the violations against Arjun and Arjun's family. And although it might look like revenge, they were actually on the side of justice. So they were fighting for their own justice and what was due to them. And actually the fighting was happening on a battlefield between soldiers. There were no innocent people. And actually it was a noble fight in that you fight during sunlight hours, and there's always a chance for peaceful negotiation after sunset. So that is the list of our arguments for Bhagavad Gita not being a book of violence, despite being on the battlefield.
Wow, Balaram, thank you so much. That was amazing. I will hand over to room number 1. I heard that some people don't remember which groups they were in. So group 1 was Ankit, Astrid, Elaine, LS, Nilamani, Sneha, Varsha, this group. So if the spokesperson have any rebuttals for Balaram, go for it. Did we have a spokesperson from room 1?
Maybe the spokesperson can put their hand up.
Okay, maybe. Oh, Ankit says they can't unmute. Interesting. Let's see. Okay, try now.
Hello, Krishna. Can you hear me?
Hey, Ankit, we can hear you now.
Great. So we were arguing that the Bhagavad Gita does promote violence, and we tried really hard to provide an argument that we didn't necessarily all believe in. We came to the conclusions or the opinions that yes, there is violence, but it is in the name of defense and not in attack, and for justice for the sons of Bandhu rather than injustice.
Ankit, really quickly, are you able to turn your camera on? We'd love to see you while you share.
Sorry, yeah, no, I'm not able to at the moment.
Okay, that's okay, no worries. Please do continue.
The second point was in the material world, especially in the age of quarrel, violence, quarrel, disagreements are inevitable. And the violence that is being due to be conducted or being requested, or the execution is not in is in the name of Dharma. However, it is of a trained warrior, somebody who is trained to deliver such blows. We also mentioned that violence is of choice of Krishna and not of Krishna's army. So Arjun chose Krishna and his guidance rather than Krishna's army. And I think violence in the sense of promotion could have been thought about as Duryodhana did when he chose Krishna's army. Yeah, those are the things we came up with.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ankit. I really like your point about quarrel being inevitable in the day and age that we live in. It's a really interesting point. Okay. Should we go to room 5, which contains Bhavini, Bhavna, Hansa, Henna, Jasmine, Lata, Nayana, and Nina? Spokesperson could turn their camera on and
Hi.
Hey, Nayana.
Hi. So we had one person who had voted yes, and the reason for that was because the Bhagavad Gita was written on the battlefield rather than in a courtroom or on other environment. And so, you know, that kind of suggests violence in a sense of, you know, why has it been written on a battlefield? However, we were against violence. We did not say that it promotes violence as a group. So as a group, we said that it was a war of righteousness, that it was a war of dharma. Krishna, actually, when he was on the battlefield, he had said right from the beginning to Arjun that I'm not going to lift any arms, you know, like that. I'm not going to take part. So he was just convincing Arjun that this is a war of duty, although he was a bit perplexed about killing his relatives and friends and what have you. But it's nishkarma, basically. So you do your duty without having the fruits of that karma that you do. That's what it's really about. We also explored ahimsa, where Gandhi was, you know, had his, you know, his point was put forward with non-violence. Everything was non-violence, and how he came about, you know, and was that the right way to go or not to go? it was just one of those things that was said. But also ahimsa in the Bhagavad Gita says that ahimsa is to not cause misery or confusion to anybody. And that's what ahimsa was about in the Bhagavad Gita itself. So it was a war of righteousness, it was a war of dharma. We also explored that if the war didn't happen at that time, then would it have filtered through all the generations and carried on and on, with all the bitterness between the cousins and the two families and so on. So that would have then continued and filtered through generations. And we all know that when you fester something like that, it just goes on and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So, this was a point to nip it in the bud while you could. And so as far as Krishna was on the battlefield, he was not necessarily promoting war because he had tried his best to not go to war in the first place, but because people don't understand, and the evil mind, because everything is in our mind, we're all at war in our minds every day. That was another point that came about, was that that this is something that we're at war with ourselves every day anyway. So
I'm gonna have to stop you there, but thank you so much.
Okay.
Just because we want to give everyone a chance to
Sorry.
speak.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, thank you.
I really like the point that you made about Krishna not fighting in the war. But is it interesting to see that he didn't fight himself, but he instructed someone else to fight, which is quite an interesting proposition. Wonder if room number 2 has anything to say about this, which is Ananda, Gita, Komal, Louise, Madhu, Pranita, Rashmi, Shyam, Govinda, Shobna, and Yorick and James. The spokesperson could tell
Yeah,
me.
hi. So I guess that would be me. Although I am in the car, so I hope Louise and Madhu, you have my back.
Are you
But
able
yeah,
to
so
turn
our
on your
topic,
video, Rashmi?
sorry, I'm in the car, I can't.
Okay, no worries.
So we had the topic that it does promote violence, and so we are saying, so yes, it does promote violence if that is the dharma. So if that is the call of duty, if that is the right thing to do given the circumstances. And in this case, we discussed that. The Pandavas, they were really subject to a lot of. There were multiple attempts on their lives from childhood. So like Bhima was given poison, and then all of them were trying. Duryodhana tried to burn them down in that the wax house, I think it was. And then their wife was humiliated. They'd already been in exile. They came back, and they literally came down to a point where they were like, just 5 villages. We don't even want what's our birthright, just 5 villages. That's all we asked for. And Duryodhana would not agree to that. And then God himself, like Krishna, comes down as he goes as the mediator, and still there was no way to put away the war. And so it at that point, the only way left forward was to go to war. And so that was Arjuna being a warrior. His dharma, his call of duty was that. And then the other point we discussed
I'll have to stop you there just because we're running out of time. But thank you so much. That's a really good point. That they tried so many different things, but only when violence was the last option. So maybe it doesn't promote violence. It only promotes that as a last resort. Should we go to room number 4? And who's in there? I think iPhone Mina, Jamuna, Prayag Ramesh, someone from this group?
It's Krishna from room 4. I haven't been, nobody wanted to be spokesperson, so I had to choose that. So I'll try and summarize and my group colleagues will hopefully add to what we discussed in the group. And first of all, we were all more for promote the Krishna didn't Bhagavad Gita doesn't promote violence, but our topic was to be that it promotes the violence. So we thought that initially when Arjuna was supposed to go into the war by Krishna between the two families, and Krishna brings a chariot in the middle of the army, and he says when he gets distressed and he doesn't want to fight and leaves the Gandiva, his weapon down. But then Krishna says that you have to lift up and fight because he shows him this universal form that I know that these people are going to die anyway. You just take and then whether he's promoting the violence for the sake of righteousness or what, but he didn't choose the non-violent way. He said the violent way that we have to lift and fight. And he goes on to answer his in the chapter number 2 on the various verses. 2.11 he says, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise, they don't lament for the living nor for the dead. So Arjuna, lift up your Ganjiva and fight for that. Similarly, he says in
Amazing.
2.8 as well. Yeah, so the point was that there is quite a lot of references out there if you want to finish. This one extra point is, which is unusual, is one of the colleagues mentioned is Gandhari. In the end, when Gandhari says to Krishna that you could have prevented the war, and she gives him the curse that your clan will perish. That means Krishna could have a way of winning this, sorting this marriage solution by non-violence way. So Gandhari does say that shows that he did promote righteousness, but through violence.
Yes,
Okay?
thank you so much. It's amazing points from group number 4, and the last group is number 3, and we have Andres, Birbala, Shishra, Deepak, Kesh, Roma, Romney, Shashi, and Shruti. You can have the spokesperson from that group.
Was I in group 3?
Who's speaking? I can't see.
Basant.
Basant.
Yes, Basant.
I
You can-
was?
I think so.
Yes.
We'll give you 30 seconds, so if you can quickly summarize.
Wow. Thank you. Okay, so what we were the group for non-violence, but we were told to have a look at if we can turn it towards a violent proposition, which was difficult. But we all sort of agreed that as a Kshatriya, Arjun had to do his duty because as Krishna tried to stop the war before it, they've gone so far after bringing peace but not wanting it. You've gone that far, you're now at the battlefield, you're going to have to do your duty as a warrior now, fight. So he's not promoting violence as such, but he's actually telling Arjun, you need to do your prescribed duty. In 2.47, he says you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruit of the action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of the activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So really, he's telling him to do his duty as a Kshatriya.
Wow. You actually quoted one of my favorite Gita verses, 2.47.
Yeah.
That was such a beautiful answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now that we've had a couple of different opinions and ideas, does anybody have any questions for any of the spokespersons? Has anything come up that, oh, I don't quite agree with that, or what do you think about this? Anyone has any questions? Maybe we'll just have a few minutes. People can raise their hands on Zoom, and we can ask. If there's anything that any of the spokespeople said that might have triggered some questions. Okay, I think we have a question from Prashant. you could unmute and turn your video on, we'd love to hear your question.
Right. Sorry.
Hey,
So, hi. My question was, as a prelude to the war, right? Arjun and Duryodhan both approached Krishna to actually secure favors from Krishna. Krishna then had the opportunity to say no to Duryodhan for giving the army. Perhaps, I don't know, how could that have influenced war not happening or so? My question was, any thoughts around why Krishna didn't say no to giving his dearest army, creating a scene for war, and then, yeah.
Which side were you on, Prashant?
Sorry?
Which side are you on and which side are you asking the question to?
So you mean the side of is
Do you
violence?
believe that the Gita was promoting violence or not promoting violence?
Oh no, my understanding is a little different. My understanding is Krishna explained that there is always a violence going on basically between the three gunas. So as long as we are in the zone of material, it's always going to be violent unless peace is the way and both parties agree to it.
Okay, amazing. Do any of the spokespeople have an answer to that question?
Can I say something? By the time Arjun and Duryodhan went to Krishna to ask for his help, it was too late. It was them getting ready for war now. He's already gone and taken his peace offering to both sides. So when they are then asking for either Krishna or his soldiers, by that time they're getting ready for war. So it's gone past the point of any peace. That's my understanding.
Amazing answer. Thank you so much.
Also, is it an ask or is it an offer from Krishna?
An ask. They are asking him.
Okay, amazing. I think we have another question from Astrid.
It was Krishna was also a king. It was also his dharma to give what he could when they came for his help.
Thank you so much for sharing. Astrid, would you like to share your question?
Yes, just a remark, because the only thing that comes to mind, if I have to do the opposite side of what we all think, we are all convinced of, is if people who don't really look at this in a spiritual way, then it can indeed be seen as a promotion to violence, because if someone like Krishna is starting a war or inducting a war, and the people who are not spiritual, they see it as a promotion. So they see if God even is okay with this, then it should be normal, and then it's righteous, then it's good. And it's telling us in some way that it's okay to be violent. So that may be some
Great question. Yeah. Does anyone from rooms 4, 5, and 6 have any thoughts? The people that were arguing against the motion?
So I can say a point.
I think what's just been said is correct, that superficially it does appear like Krishna's saying, it's fine, go to war, don't worry about your relatives, don't worry about anybody, you go ahead and kill them, and it doesn't matter because it won't go into your sins account, if you like, because you're just doing your duty, so it's okay. So superficially, if you look at it like that, it's like, my goodness, how can that be okay? Because it can't be okay to do that. So superficially, absolutely, it's not the correct way to go about it. But the deeper understanding and the deeper spiritual meaning behind it wasn't about the actual killing at each other. It's about killing the rights and the rights, but the wrongs in your own minds, and making sure that we have the dharma, the right righteousness prevails basically within all of us. But the deeper meaning goes a lot further than the superficial words, if you like.
So I'll add something to that really quickly, if that's all right.
Yes.
On the same track there. So when something's like obviously good and obviously bad, it's like a vice and a virtue. It's easy to just say, yeah, the virtue is the one to choose over the vice. But when you've got two virtues clashing, then it becomes difficult. And that's when you have to choose the great over the good. And that is a difficult decision. So Krishna was leaving Arjuna to make a difficult decision between the virtue of the compassion and justice, and then he had to choose which way he's going to go. So it was definitely a difficult decision, but that's what's at play here: good, bad versus good and great. That was what I was going to add. Okay, thank you.
Wow, thank you both. Those really insightful answers. Okay, so I think people have had, a chance to think a little bit more deeply about this, and would like to relaunch the poll and see if anything has changed. So you should all be able to see the poll now, and I'd be interested to see if people's opinions have changed, then more towards, more against. So we'll just give everyone a few moments to fill in the poll.
Can I just say something while they're doing that? I actually looked for Bhagavad Gita on Amazon, and I saw a review on there, and it looked like from a person who doesn't follow Hinduism or Krishna consciousness, and it was saying how much of a bad book it was and just promoting violence, and from that you can gather that the person didn't actually read it in the way it's supposed to be read. So I think, yes, the way somebody said earlier, it does depend on whether you read it as a Gita or you read it as a book that's promoting violence.
Wow, thank you so much. Okay, I think the results are in. Almost everyone has voted now. And it's interesting, the results are very similar. So if we can publish that, previously we had about 90% of people saying that no, the Gita does not promote violence. And now we have 89% people saying that no, the Gita does not promote violence. Maybe 1% has changed, which is interesting. But what we'll do is we'll hand over to our expert, Nilamani, who's been studying the Gita, and we'd love to hear her thoughts on this debate. I think you're on mute if you're trying to say something.
Okay, I'm just going to try to share my screen. I hope you can.
Yeah, we can see that now.
See it. Okay, so I think these were the slides that I was trying to show at the beginning, but you guys may not have been able to see them, but I'll just quickly whiz through these because I've already said all this. This was, the debate part. And yeah, just to say that it was really, really wonderful to hear from all of you and to hear these wonderful points that both sides put together. In many ways, I think that, yeah, I don't really need to go through this particularly because I think you've covered a lot of it. But I'll just, nevertheless, just to do the topic justice, I'll quickly go through the slides, hopefully in the next 10 minutes, and hopefully we'll have time for a couple of questions afterwards. So whenever you start a debate, it's always good to have a couple of definitions. So here we have the main words in the motion, which was the Bhagavad Gita promotes violence. So the word violent, these are dictionary definitions: the use of physical force as to injure, abuse, damage, or destroy, and promote, as it's been used here, to contribute to the growth or prosperity of, in which sense, in this statement, to further violence. That's the motion that was being put forward. So Arjun's arguments for not fighting, you covered all of these actually, so I'm not going to labor them, but compassion, attachment for his family and teachers, I think one of the first groups covered that. Enjoyment wasn't explicitly talked about, but it's something that Arjun talks about, that there's not going to be anybody to enjoy the fruits of this with. So why kill for temporary happiness and a kingdom, you know? And destruction of family traditions and the breaking up of the sanctity of society. I think somebody did mention that. There's a term called varnashram, which is a Sanskrit term, which talks about the organization of society in terms of stage of life and occupation. And the goal of that system is actually to enable everyone to become self-realized and learn about the divine or Krishna, and actually progress in their spiritual life. And one of the arguments Arjun puts forward is that, you know, this system and these traditions and the community projects and welfare that is normally there in society when there's a mass war, they wouldn't be able to prosper as normal. There was fear of sinful reaction, which I think one of, again, I can't remember the number of the group, but one of the groups covered, even though the Kauravas, the opposing side, had done so many things to his family, as you pointed out, and were aggressors in many ways, still Arjun was actually worried, based on Dharma Shastra, he was worried about the sin that he would incur from killing his cousins and his gurus and teachers, and indecision. These are the arguments that Arjun put forward. Now, there's a little bit of a nuance here that I'm going to cover, which I think we didn't really touch on. But what is non-violence for him? So now the Gita itself talks about this, and it says that a non-violence means that we shouldn't do anything that puts anybody else into misery or confusion, doesn't disturb somebody else's mind. And material activities that are often promised by those who are well-wishing and well-meaning don't always produce good results if they don't have transcendental vision and they don't know what's really beneficial for us and for all living beings. So that's something to bear in mind. It also, ahimsa, the Sanskrit term for nonviolence, also means that people should be trained in a way so that they can make maximum use of this human form of life, or this opportunity to actually further themselves in self-realization. That's the deeper meaning of non-violence. And this human body, as we understand, I'm sure you guys have covered this in previous session, is a vehicle for the Atman, or the soul, or the self, which is in fact eternal and divine. So, you know, any organization or anything that doesn't really allow that bigger purpose, that higher purpose of the self to be realized, is actually committing violence. So this is something that the Gita talks about. It's here. That which furthers the future spiritual happiness is called non-violence. So they've got slightly nuanced, more subtle understandings of the term violence and non-violence. And I think that is something that can take this debate to another level. Again, a couple more thoughts on non-violence. Most people think it means not destroying the body, and actually this is something that Krishna talks about in the second chapter of the Gita, where he talks about the eternality of the soul and the inevitable destruction of the body. But it also means not putting others into distress, as we've said right at the beginning in terms of this. And people are generally often they don't know about the self, or they don't know about the process of self-realization, or that there is anything higher. And so they're kind of trapped by this ignorance and the kind of material concept of life. And so they're actually suffering because they don't know of any other way out of the cycle of birth and death, or of how to take their soul to a higher level. So unless the ends of any organization or any action that's taken is to help people to understand that, it is actually committing a level of violence. So as this is all referenced from Bhagavad Gita, by the way, 13.8 to 12, in the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So therefore, for everybody here, I would say, those of us that are fortunate enough to know something about the Gita have an onus on us to try and share this information with others, even if it's given in very simple terms, so that they can actually make the maximum use of this human form of life. So again, a few more points on this. Yeah, so real non-violence is when our every thought, word, action is dovetailed or in line or in pursuance with the will of Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Krishna. And that's from the Bhagavatam. It's referenced 112. And active non-violence, as we've said, is giving others the tools or the information or a step in the right direction to be able to free themselves from material miseries, or the incompatible situation, as it's sometimes described, of being a spiritual entity in a material sphere. And so if somebody is living their life like that, really trying to share this message and this information, trying to live by it, even though they're acting and being in the world, they're not actually generating more karma, because they're no longer living and acting for themselves, their purpose in life. And here I'm talking about very great saintly people, or those people who are very dedicated to this as being their life's purpose. Yeah. So they don't generate any more karma once they decide to really live according to the principles of the Gita and share the principles of the Gita. So what does Krishna say to Arjuna? Now, you guys did cover this, but he basically encourages him to think beyond the bodily concept and think about the greater good, the more just thing to be done under the circumstances, considering that the opposing side wasn't pious, wasn't just, even though they may have been very managerially strong. They weren't going to have a government or a rule. Well, it wasn't a government, it was a monarchy, but they wouldn't have had a rule where people could have really benefited by becoming fully self-realized. And so Krishna asks Arjuna to, as it says here, give up so-called non-violence for the greater benefit of the whole of society. And here I've just put a few points down, as you can see on the slide, to protect society. So I mentioned this term, Varnashram, the organization of society, before. So Devi means divine, meaning that not just organization so that society can just function smoothly, and people can progress economically and managerially and etc., but progress to a spiritual benefit, and that every person who's part of that society has that opportunity. Again, bring in a righteous ruler and thereby enable people to pursue their ultimate best welfare, or what's in their self-interest. So yeah, this Sanskrit that I've put in here is very famous and well known. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhya. And Krishna says, and I'll read this bit out in the Gita 8.7, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. And again, one more verse that's very well known, Bhagavad Gita 3.30. Therefore, Arjuna, surrendering all your works onto me with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit and with no claim to proprietorship and free from lethargy, fight. So these are straight from the Gita. So in summary, I'm on my last slide, doing well. In summary, Arjun's reasons for not wanting to fight are based, obviously he's coming from the sense of having a very soft, compassionate heart, which a genuine devotee would have, but they are based on the bodily conception of life and what seems to be best. Krishna explains that Arjuna has a duty to perform as a warrior, and due to the injustices borne by his family at the hands of the Kauravas, he needs to take action. The deeper meaning of what violence and non-violence are in terms of facilitating self-realization is something that we've covered and highlighted. And ultimately, Krishna here, as we understand from the Gita, is God himself. And he wills and he desires that Arjuna take up his bow and arrow and fight. But he doesn't take Arjuna's free will away, and he leaves it to Arjuna to decide what to do. So the case for Arjuna fighting is stronger in the end, even though Arjuna has this strong moment of indecision. And so he decides to go ahead and fight. So I hope that's been helpful. There are even more in-depth, nuanced things that can come out of this. But in view of time, I'm going to stop the slideshow now, stop sharing that, and open it up to Double. Is there anything? Please direct us from here.
Thank you so much, Nilamani, for breaking down these concepts of violence. I think for me, my personal reflection is that it seems like we have a responsibility, all of us on this call, as students of the Gita, to try and live our lives according to these principles like ahimsa, selflessness, serving others. So yeah, thank you so much. And also all these quotes have really inspired me to learn more about the Gita's perspective. So thank you so much, Nilamani. And thank you to all of you, everyone that joined, and for sharing and participating so enthusiastically. Oh, I think we've got one question coming. Would you like to unmute? I'm not sure I can read your name, unfortunately. You're still on mute.
Hello, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I would like to ask a question. What do you think, according to Bhagavad Gita, should we participate, for example, in a regular army, in wars, or we should escape?
Hi, please remind me of your name again.
My name is Paulina.
Lena, thank you so much for your question. So you basically were asking whether we should take part and be in the army and participate in normal wars, or whether we should leave. And I think this is a question that's really about what your duty is and what your purpose in life is. So if you are trained to fight and you have been trained in the army, and that is part of your job or your role description, something that you feel is in your nature and that you've taken on, then you may be duty bound to fight. However, if it isn't in your nature to do that, then it wouldn't make sense for you to do that. Whether or not the battle is actually a battle similar to the Gita is a secondary question. But I don't know if that helps initially. I guess it's almost like saying, you know, should somebody be in any profession? Should somebody be a doctor? Should somebody be a policeman? The truth is we need people in the army. We need people who are policemen. We need people who are medics. We need people in every sphere of society. but it's as to whether it works with your own ethical framework as an individual, as to whether you can take on that job and be prepared for not just the karma that may be involved, but also the impact it may have on you. So I hope that helps. I mean,
Thank you.
it's an important point that you've raised, because that's one of the things that's there in the Varnashram construct, is there are people in all divisions or all factions and all job types in society. And the truth is that that structure that's talked about in the Gita always exists in one form or another, because that is naturally how society polarizes, because people have different tendencies. We're individuals, we're persons, and we have different propensities and different natures in terms of what jobs we do and what stages of life we're at. But when there is a divine focus, it uplifts the whole of society, because everybody's working towards that, and that's the center point. Yeah, thank you for your question.
Thank you. You know, this question is very important nowadays, because personally, I'm from Russia, and you know the situation. There is a war between the Russians and Ukraine, and it's a great pity that sometimes Russian Vaishnavas say that we have to fight. It's a great pity for me, and they say that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna promotes violence in such cases. And this is it's a great pity, you know.
I'm sorry that they're using the Bhagavad Gita in that sense. Maybe there's some misunderstanding along the way, but a war that's directly under the guidance of Krishna is very different from what's happening all over the world, not just in Russia and Ukraine right now. And generally, when we really look into it, there are often human errors or reasons or failings as to why these wars incur and happen in the first place. And I think if somebody is using the Gita in that way to incite others to step forward, they need to be very careful. Yeah. Because as we've discussed today, Arjuna's situation was very specific. All attempts were made at peace before war was brought forward as an option. You know, nobody ever wants a war because so many innocent lives, or there are repercussions on innocent people, even if it's not that their lives are taken. And it creates so much distress and havoc in society on all fronts. So in terms of the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, every attempt was made to avoid the war before that point of the Bhagavad Gita being spoken. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. I think we'll close tonight then. Thank you all so much for joining and staying. Another big thank you to Nilamani for leading us through
Thanks
that.
for the session.
Leading us through that session. It's quite a deep topic about violence, especially with things going on in today's world. So thank you so much. And once again, thank you to everyone for participating so enthusiastically.